Hello, I'd like to introduce a video that I've created to give you an opportunity to hear from the Reverend Dr. Douglas Wingeier. I created this on the occasion of our 50th anniversary of our graduation from Evangelical Theological Seminary. I am a member of the class of 1971, and Doug came to Evangelical Theological Seminary in the fall of 1970, which was my senior year. Doug was an important part of my senior year, and he also was a very important part of my doctoral ministry program at Garrett-Evangelical in the early 80s when he was in charge of the doctoral ministry program. As classmates gather, I thought it'd be helpful to hear from some of the people that were a part of that journey and part of us yet today. It's a blessing to have one of our professors who were with us 50 years ago, still with us. So I've asked Doug in this Zoom conference to share a little bit about his memories of ETS and what he has done since we left the seminary. So I'd like to present to you the remembrances and the continuing activities of this very active, dedicated, committed Christian. Here is Doug Wingeier.
I'm very proud of my years at ETS. It meant a lot to me. We were just coming back from 8 years as missionaries in Singapore, right off the boat, you might say. And so you all helped me a lot to get settled and integrated. And I found ETS to be a wonderful, accepting, nurturing community. That was the key element of it. From the community council, which was to me a revolutionary idea of seminary administration and leadership. That model stayed with me, and I later introduced some aspects of it into the doctoral ministry program of Garrett-Evangelical when I became the founding director after we moved over to Evanston. It was the community council, it was the family groups where I still hear from two members of my family group, John Strasburger and Dennis Johnson. We communicate off and on, and so that was important. And then I love the academic center. That building was so refreshing as a setting, a teaching learning setting, so flexible, and I appreciated that. And I appreciated the EUB background. I was a former Methodist, and the combination of social concern and evangelical piety and a biblical theological grounding, that was very influential to me too. I also appreciated the freedom to develop a curriculum. I came in as professor of Christian education, and there had been a hiatus when they hadn't had anyone, and I was trusted to develop a curriculum that seemed to fit the time. Those were important elements in the relationships that, of course, I was a member of one at different points, both the West Michigan and the Wisconsin conferences, and there were ETS graduates in both of those whom I saw on an ongoing basis. So if some of you are here in this conversation, I appreciate those friendships too. So it was a great experience being at ETS. And of course, when we moved over to Evanston and became Garrett-Evangelical, we were of the ETS faculty were able to introduce some of those elements into the new mix. And it was a bit strained at first because we were different cultures. But after the students who came from the two schools graduated, and we became really one school, we brought in some new faculty and became one faculty, and a lot of the elements that I've mentioned from ETS became part of the new school as well. So altogether, it was a very positive experience for me and for my family. Two of my kids graduated from Naperville schools and two from Evanston schools. And I might just mention a little bit about my family. My wife, Carol, passed away a year and a half ago of Alzheimer's. And I still miss her a lot. She was a big part of my life and my ministry and the raising of our family. She was from Georgia and I was from Michigan, and we decided to get married in order to settle the Civil War once and for all, but it kept breaking out in our household every now and then. Also at ETS, we had a covenant community in our home for 6 months, which was kind of an experiment. A couple of ETS students and a young single woman plus our family of 6. We developed a covenant and shared responsibilities and leadership, worship, and that was a good experience as well. Moving over to Evanston, I became the director of the Doctor of Ministry program, and as I mentioned, brought some elements from the ETS culture into that experience. And I was a director. I developed the program and was the director for 17 years, and I still have a positive relationships with some of those graduates as well, carrying on through the years. Since retired in 1979 and moved to Lake Junaluska, North Carolina. Carol was from Appalachia, and the Appalachian culture, particularly its music, was very ingrained in her. And so she lived up north with me for 27 years, and I said, well, it's your turn. And so she opted to come south, and this is Western North Carolina is a hotbed of bluegrass music and other forms of mountain music. And she learned to play the banjo, and she was my interpreter with the language and the culture. I became sort of a transplanted Western Carolinian, and then we moved eventually to Brooks Howell Home, which is operated by United Methodist Women, and was originally formed for retired women deaconesses and missionaries, that opened up to couples, and we were among the first, and that's where I am today. In retirement, I have stayed active. The church I attend, I was instrumental in initiating. I participated in the mission committee and established relationships with the first reconciling congregation in Africa, in Kenya, and continue that with the monthly Zoom calls, and got the mission program involved with UMCOR and some advanced specials and so on. They were doing mostly local mission trips and so on. And also helped to start a Church and Society Committee and a Creation Care Committee, and share teaching in an adult Sunday school class. We've done a lot of traveling during my closing years at Garrett-Evangelical. I took my sabbaticals and volunteered to teach in different countries, back to Singapore once and to Samoa twice, to Hong Kong, to the Philippines, to Korea, and to Central America. So I was able to keep my mission interest alive and offer some time and some service in those areas. But we also did more tourist type travel. I was asked to count up the countries I've been in, and I can't recall the exact number. It was something over 100 different countries I've been in for as long as, of course, the 8 years in Singapore, but shorter times like on a cruise for just maybe a few hours. But as I mentioned, I volunteered in several places. So I learned a lot from those cross-cultural experiences. Also, I volunteered with a Mennonite organization called Christian Peacemaker Teams, and I was our goal was to stand between forces of violence and protect people, and we did that in Hebron. I did that in Hebron, in the West Bank, and in Chiapas in southern Mexico, and in Colombia. I never was in any personal danger, as two of our members have been killed, but for the most part, we would walk children to school or stand with our spread eagles while they searched Palestinians and offered to be searched ourselves, and other things. Climb up on the roof to delay house demolitions in order to allow families to get their belongings out before the bulldozers toppled their homes. And also, Carol and I went to the School of the Americas at Fort Benning, Georgia, to protest the training, the U.S. training of Latin American troops and police in methods of torture of their own people in their countries like Guatemala and El Salvador. And we led a team to build a school in Nicaragua, where our son Philip was a missionary at the time. Worked with the people in a barrio there, raised money, and took a team of 20-some to help with that. And I also written a lot of adult curriculum materials for United Methodist Board of Education, Board of Discipleship, and just finished. My son Stephen he's a writer, a poet, and with a friend knows how to publish. He has what he calls the Wind Eagle Press, and I wrote a book, Marks of Mission, which some of you may have seen, which sort of my theology of mission. And just finished a book I call Beacons, which is about stories of people that have influenced my life. So that's something about my life. In addition to Stephen, who lives in Atlanta, my other son, Philip, who was also a missionary in several countries, and now he taught at Pfeiffer University here in North Carolina, and then at SMU at Perkins and Austin Seminary. Now he's the dean at Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C., in his third year. And I have one daughter, Ruth, who's a nurse midwife, now retired. She delivered over 2,000 babies in Minnesota. And daughter, Martha Emily, who lives in Boulder, Colorado. And She just recently was divorced, and she's now working to, she's a massage therapist working. And then I have 9 grandchildren, 1 great grandchild, 1 great grandson who's now in middle school. So that's kind of my story. And again, I want to thank all of you who were a part of initiating me back into the United States in Naperville and ETS. And I treasure those years and memories of you. So I wish you well in I assume most of you are retired now as well. I hope you can have an interesting, useful, and meaningful life in retirement. Well, thank you.